And in order to moderate the last panel, we have Lucca Rizzo, specialist in climate finance in the Institute of Climate and Society. Thank you, Lucca. And I invite as a panelist the Senior Coordinator of Programs of Climate Policy Initiative, Amanda Brasil. And the Executive Director of Chatham House Sustainability Accelerator, Anna Young. Welcome, and thank you for being here. Well, first I want to thank everyone who is here patiently during lunchtime listening to us. This is a lot of love for bioeconomy, and I want to thank Sergio Bresserman for hosting this event. That I can say that it's one of the first public policies to value the climate agenda in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, and nature finance for carrying out this work of gathering 21 institutions to work with the bioeconomy agenda from industry to social build. This is how we should bring the Brazilian bioeconomy. And it is a moment that in Brazil we had a decree that instituted the national policy of bioeconomy in G20, in the international agenda. There are some initiatives discussing the finance agenda, that is the object of this system. The TFF are coming as an initiative for COP30, but it's not only G20 that was fundamental to bring the bioeconomy agenda forward. It was a multidisciplinary work among the task forces of the Sherpa tracks and the financial tracks. We had the initiative of bioeconomy in the Sherpa track. In the group of environmental and climate sustainability, we had discussions about payments for environmental services, aiming at promoting financial benefits to the communities and traditional populations that are in the daily life of the biodiversity. In the financial tracks, in the sustainable finance groups, we had two topics that deal indirectly with the priority that handles the access and analyzed the access of the climate funds, multilateral climate funds, aiming at bringing more resources to the climate agenda to unlock $40 billion of these funds that certainly will be directed to bioeconomy. And the priority 4, that was a topic on financing and of nature-based solutions that had this support of Itaúsa and IX with the study of CPI, who is here today and is going to present in an unprecedented manner the discussion of G20 to the audience, starting this and opening this report that was official of the G20 that serves for the declarations that were achieved in this on Monday and Tuesday. So the first manifestation will be from Amanda from CPI, that is the lead author of this study, to bring to us the challenges that she mapped and the innovative instruments in different countries that were mapped, and that is in the report. Amanda, please. Thank you, Lucca. I'm very happy to be here. I represent Climate Policy Initiative, and I have a presentation, but I don't have the control. But as Lucas said, we are launching today this report called Toolbox of Financial-Based Solution, or Tools to Boost the Nature-Based Solutions Financing. And we are launching in Portuguese and in English in our website. I could have a QR code here to you, but it's there. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of this process, the main lessons learned from this research. Just to contextualize here, I don't know if this is working. Okay, it's worked. Now, talking about the process, as Lucca explained, we wrote this report aiming at informing the sustainable finance groups of G20. In this year, this priority was this topic of finance of nature-based solutions. with the objective to inform this discussion. No. We wrote this report that was an analysis of 12 cases of financial instruments that could mobilize capital for nature-based solutions, and we draw some parallels and the common challenges and the common solutions for different contexts. In the nature-based solutions, we had a specific focus on conservation, restoration, bioeconomy, agroforestries, and oceans and waters. And this is a small parenthesis about bioeconomy. That's something that Marcelo talked to us about classifying for this report, regardless of the other discussions. When you talk about bioeconomy, we are thinking about social bioeconomy and the production of forest products and not wood products and timber products, with logistic challenges that are more compatible with the other challenges of the nature-based solutions. With all this in mind, we mapped more than 60 financial instruments with the inputs of the members of Sustainable Finance of G20, with the inputs of many different partners, and we refined this list, and we had a case study of 12 instruments that you are seeing listed here. I'm not getting into profound analysis of each one of the instruments, but I invite you to take a look at our report. These instruments were chosen aiming at finding a diversity of geographies, so we didn't want solution that was good for only one specific concept. And we approach the structuring. So we have mechanisms of improving of credits and guarantees, blended funds and equity, fixed income and sovereign bonds, and so on. The analysis of the instrument was given about the different criteria that you can see in the screen. I hope you can see the diagram, but it is a little busy slide. So we analyzed these instruments about the strategies to reduce the risk, the innovative components, and what made them different from the existing mechanisms, what is the potential of scalability and replicability, and the mobilization of capital, and the present and the future and the financial stability. Based on this analysis of the 12 instruments, we started to bring comparisons of the topics that were more recurrent. The first one is to channel the private investments to public assets, and second, we have the construction of ecosystems as a path to scalability. So many of these instruments made use of some technical assistant resources. And lastly, in the approaches of structuring, there was one element that we saw recurrently, especially in the cases of more scalability, that was the use of guarantees. So we are going to dive deep in these three topics. I'll try to be brief because, as Lucca said, we are almost lunchtime. So the first one is the nature as a public asset. The nature as a public asset is in the soul of the challenge to fund this nature-based solutions. When you have a public assets, and I'm a little bit intimidated because my economics professor is here, and I'm going to explain a public assets. So we have the benefits spread by different aspects of society. When this happens, regardless of having a value generation, we lack the incentive to pay for that. And the classical example to describe a public asset is the air, so a pure air. So regardless of the investments to purify the air, everyone that is in the environment can enjoy these benefits. So what is the stimulation that you have to pay for that? So in this challenge, many instruments approached with strategies to engage beneficiaries that were well positioned to benefit from these interventions. So regardless of the multiple benefits, many times there are some organizations, for example, insurance companies, sanitation companies, or new social companies that can increase their profits or avoid costs. When this is demonstrated to them, there is more opening to pay for this type of ecosystem services. Besides this type of services as reduction of costs and improving of profits, they are willing to engage in this type of initiative for strategic interests, as the case of food securities funds and Natura, that's guarantee the integrity of the value chain, is a good moment, good reason for them to involve in this type of structure. And lastly, when there is no clear organization in the market that can be benefited, we saw some instruments that created this type of organization to collect the profits of the conservation and restoration processes. In this topic as nature as a public asset, we had three main reasons, main lessons. The first one is that this is common for all the nature-based solutions, that we need a deep local knowledge and connections based on the territory with the local conditions in order to engage and identify these beneficiaries of these nature-based solutions. After identifying these beneficiaries, there are many ways that they can enter in the financial mechanisms. They can come as direct investors, they can come in strategic functions to mitigate risks, participating in the first loss or some guarantees, and they can invest as Natura in the Natura Incompatibility Facility in the construction of the ecosystems, in the communities that they produce what they are going to buy later. And lastly, this process to engage multiple stakeholders, although it is a path, it is complex and long-lasting, and and time-consuming. It can generate complex structures. It's good to bring incentives for these beneficiaries because many times the companies that are well positioned to pay for these services, they do not see the incentives to engage in something that is totally new and not proven yet. And then for the next topic, we see the development of ecosystems. And I will try to be very brief here and shorten my slides here. But this is something that was already approached before, the same way that in the nature we see an interconnection of the human beings and the agents that share the same ecosystems. When we look at the economic perspective, it's important to think how all the agents are connected and how the changes with the objective to scale this type of financing has to take into account the different layers that are involved in this process. So when you think about the governments, the public policies, and the regulatory environment are going to influence how the capital holders are going to choose their investments. And these capital holders, when they choose their investments, they will choose the type of companies, the type of cooperatives and processes that are going to receive the investments, and what will be the use of this capital. So they influence the decisions that the companies are going to make. And lastly, in this pipeline, when they decide to invest in different opportunities, it's going to influence the local communities and the individuals. That is the base of the relevance of the nature-based solutions. So when you think about a solution, we cannot think about a solution in only one of these aspects. It's quite the opposite. We have to think how they are going to be interconnected. When you think about scaling, we have to provide technical support, financial support for all different agents. And in the main lessons about the construction and the development of these ecosystems, I believe that this technical and financial support can be implemented through different layers and groups, depending on the objective of an investment in each case. And then this technical assistance can take various forms. For example, when you work with a company, the technical assistant can be essential to move forward in the technical implementation. I was trying not to be repetitive here to guarantee the integrity of the impact. But this technical assistance needs to work with the companies in the tradability, in the bankability of the companies. So in order to reduce the impacts for the development of the company. So it's important to know the type of support that is necessary in order to generate the intended results. So the idea to scale nature-based solutions requires more than just directing capital to this type of solutions, but they also need to be to prepare the solutions to receive the capital and to be successful in what they want to do. And lastly, When you talk about the different strategies of structuring, we wanted to highlight that the catalytic role of the guarantees in the sectors that use the nature-based solutions. Many times they are exposed to different types of risk, as exchange rate risk, political and credit risk, and some nature-based solutions have characteristics that bring more challenges to be funded. For example, the time horizons that are long, the difficulty to the liquidity, and a relatively smaller scale of investments. In this case, the guarantees emerge as one of the favorite tools of the private sector to mitigate risks. They are very versatile and they can be used in different contexts to mitigate different types of risks. But although its relevance of the guarantees, something that we observe is that many times the organization that is providing this capital, that is providing these guarantees, is the same. So we saw the same names being appearing there recurrently. So that's different to maintain the scale. So to conclude, the three main points to take from this report, of course, there are more details, that it is really important to increase the investment in nature-based solutions, but focusing only on the scale before the market is ready to receive these investments can be counterproductive. So for that, we need to construct an ecosystem and think about the solutions in a holistic way involving all the beneficiaries. And lastly, this is the point of the guarantees that although there are many approaches of technical structuration that you can look at the reports and bring some inspirations, they were present in most of the cases of larger scale, so we believe there is potential to continue mobilizing capital for nature-based solutions. Thank you.
Excellent, Amanda. And I'd like to say that we'll have a website with the summary of this project. And it's interesting to say that we did an workshop in the G20. We had the opportunity to present all of this information. Obviously, we cannot show you this information because we don't have time for that. But this solutions will not only be solutions for the private sector, it's not only coming from the philanthropy. I believe that G20 had a very important role inside of the sustainable market because we had some representatives from the societies, the MDPs, and also the countries that have this relationship and collaboration for this specific kind of project. Obviously, the technical department had support in the philanthropies, and as she said, we can work with the companies of this chain, but we can also work with international agencies such as DFC, ITP Invest, trying to unlock the warranties of the bioeconomy sector. Amanda bring in their report how finances will bring innovative solutions, and I'd like to ask her how this financial sector, can commute with innovation in our sector. So Anna, the stage is yours. So my name is Anna Young. Majority of people knows me as the president of IX, but I'm not here as the president of the council, but as the director of the Center of Environment and Society here in Brazil. And I would like to bring to you some findings, and also I would like to apologize because there are a lot of times that for a long time I don't speak Portuguese and I'm missing some words here. So we had a project with a focus on the bioeconomy and the transitions and pathways of this bioeconomy, and there is a logical way, which is I am Brazilian and I work for a long time in this area of forests, and we have worked through decades trying to bring solutions for the nature. And some years ago, we worked with restoring our forest, and also with Raquel when she was working with us. And then we have alluded to some financial solutions for the nature. And the big question in this case is how to reduce the risk of solutions for the nature is where is the cash flow and how the solution for the nature connects with the real activities. And this took us to explore the concept of economy, of bioeconomy. And that's why we started. So I forgot to tell you what is Chatham House. Chatham House is a center of research with international relationship based in London with a global scope, and we are not connected and we are kind of independent from any government. In all that we see, we have a different perspective. We can consider our paper that will be published in the next month. This will bring a little more about this idea. I just would like to connect, and I know that all of us are aware about this, is that we need to do this transition. And to do that, we must take out the feedstock from fossil sources from our energetic systems, food, and material department. These are the points that we need to take care of inside of the system. And I forgot about this point here. And why is that? Last Monday I was in London and a moderator panel with about overcommission, which is a commission about the ONO system that is studying what the world is doing once we are in an emergency route and we are far beyond this point 0.5 sector, and we must adapt, yes, and then we must accelerate our process of transitions to a next negative, positive, or negative economy. So this graphic, which is from the IPCC, this blue part is the speed that we need to capture more carbon and some other gases. And what does it really mean? A very well structured economy for the country. And I believe it's important to highlight the transition of bioeconomy. Will not necessarily be positive if you don't have some savings and to have a balanced approach. And why is that? Because if you check the new tendencies in the middle of the last century, we will have in the middle of the next century we have more than 10 million people, and we have much more demand for the natural resources. We can see here an extract. It's not from the international panel that was released this year. If we check, the tendency is to have more and more growth. So if you don't change the way that we consume and create a new model of bioeconomy, circular and regenerative, this transition will failure and won't be positive. And another thing that is really important is that we must focus in how we will do this transition, how we're going to transition into the material systems. Okay, so when we started to study how will be the new routes in the material systems, and materials are about constructions, the use of plastics, all that comes from the fossils. Actually, the world do not know all these technologies. And what did we do? We mapped all these innovations with the idea to imagine what would be the possible ways of transitions. We mapped 150 innovations considering technological issues and also some process. And we have some very interesting issues on this project. Here we have the scope that we mapped, and we had an angle in the whole world and a lot of new points in innovation. So the next ones are some substitute products. We also had new bio-based process and efficiency gains, new bio-based products, behavior change, and how we reduce negative externalities. And what we cannot comprehend yet are how the AI and the big data will have a revolutionary effect if we in our final results, especially when they are in touch with the natural systems. And we also have some insights from this project. We can consider some of them here. For example, today the fragmented innovation systems, it's completely fragmented, it's not connected in the value chain, and we have a problem that is actually about the commercial viability. We have lots of innovation. The problem is you don't have the ways to implement this innovation because some of them are competing to these other alternatives that are sponsored by some subsidiary companies. So we have the lack of a playing field, which is a huge difficulty. And one of the things that is clear to us, and it's a little about what Amanda said, that it's really necessary to do these combinations. When you have this innovation combination, it's much more interesting, and we have much more impact. So that's why we explore this concept beyond the scale economy. It's also not a scope economy. We work with the switch of innovations, and beyond that, it's not only innovation in technology, but also in the business and financial tools, and also in the public politics. And they must be integrated among themselves so as we can have all the potential from these actions. So what are the insights? We have recently seen that we have some innovation in the energetic system and also the food system, and also we have innovations happening in the material system, but they are not connected among themselves. So the thing is, we created a model as a Ford experiment. In this model was, if you deploy bioplastic, laminated tumbler, CLT, and the protein, the alternative protein, for example, how will they compete for researchers as earth, water, and some other kinds of energy, where we have synergies and where we have trade-offs. So actually, this innovation are not equal because, for example, we know that protein, the alternative protein, they have potentials to save and to save life-saving, which is bigger than cross-laminated timmy or bioplastic, or at least the bioplastic for this generation. So what is interesting here is that when we see the future and the role of the potential role of the innovation, we must see how they cooperate. And we also saw that the sequencing is also important. If you start a deployment all at the same time, you have a problem of competition. So we have to understand the trade-off, the synergies, and the resource competition matters will be absolutely critical to us to reach this bioeconomy, this positive bioeconomy that we want to. So it's just two slides more. Your question about, okay, so how does that connect with finance? How do we connect innovation with, and where the finance connect with innovation? I believe that we have one very important point, is that we have to close the gap of confidence across several layers, must be bridged. We have the market gap and the knowledge gap. So for us to enable innovation and also to make this investment possible, we must connect all of them. And I will enclose here the idea with the geopolitics and bioeconomic transition. When we see all the potentials that we have in the bioeconomy in the world, we can see that there's an emerging and rearranging geopolitics models of bioeconomy. And why is that? Because we realize that there are some matches between geopolitics and climate changes. What some countries chooses from the and if they choose to do partnership with China, for example, it may affect the way that they work with the energetic transition. So this goes into geopolitical analysis. As we are in a process of remodeling this relationship between the countries, among the countries, this will be much more interesting because you have the transfer of power from the lower majors for the new players which have the natural resources. And what does it really mean? I would like to warn you here and bring you into a new reflection, which is the fact that you have the natural resources do not assure you that you have a very good strategic position. Because another thing that we have to consider is the post DNG, the capacity of producing, and also the human resources will be as important as the the natural resources that you have. I just would like to reflect about this, not only about the economy and the G20 and all of these things. I believe that the choices that Brazil will do in the future and where to invest, where to connect with the public politics may take the country in a drive seat referring to the global tendencies of transitions bioeconomicals. Thank you very much. Thank you, Anna. Well, certainly we have many other innovative products here. I would like to bring you here about the Macaoba, which we are working right now in the biofield using some negative things to produce good things. And we can see the Magic, for example, giving voices to this matter. But just would like to bring you some new things about innovation. So we're talking about investments and the banks and some of these partners do like innovation. So I'd like to ask, it's not programmed, but how can we bring this innovation closer to our reality regarding to the financial tools, all of the studies and researches that you had about the equity funds, or if it's a Natura-based solution, how can we simplify this and bring the solution closer to the banks, considering commercial or the multilaterals ones? Relating to the projects that Anna has just commented, how we can bring this new reality of innovations so as we can find this new investments and we can develop this innovative projects more and more to do this energetic transition in agriculture as well. I just would like to leave this as a challenge for the last session here. Who wants to start? Okay, so very good question. I believe there are two things here. One of them about the barriers to implement these innovations. Considering, in one hand, you have to consider this blended finance instruments. The goal here is to increase the risk using some capitals that comes from the public or the philanthropies, and to create the opportunity for the private sector to, let's say, prove a new thing. It's a profile that we can see risk and return very positive. So, in the other hand, we have the approach of the institutional companies to think about a capital market, but I believe that's not the only barrier. You also have another thing in a part of the investors, because they're saying, what is this new thing that I have never seen before, and why will I waste my time thinking about this if you have many other options to invest? So the thing is, we have to decrease these barriers, which is very important, and to see this pressure about the financial department from the ones that really own the money. So they have to decide where they will invest, but sometimes they are only the negotiators, they are not the owner of the money. So when you have this scenario that we have to explore more and more this kind of alternative, so you can make the scenario better. And some other initiatives may collaborate. I have to comment about the lab. Inside of CPA, we have the Global Innovation Lab for Climate Finance, which is a laboratory for sustainable finances, with the goal to bring more investments and to mitigate the adaptation of climate changes. Inside of this scenario, we have different kinds of investors considering the public and the private sectors to work with new tools. So having this different providers of capital, you can decrease a little more about bad information about this, and also to bring more investment barriers. And just to sum up, we have here some one side in the mitigation of risk and the other in the education of the investor, and to have a little pressure so as they can know all the important information to do this. Well, Amanda, you are a very good specialist in this matter, but one thing that we'd like to share with you is that we have a difference between the realized risk and the surprised risk. We could say that we have a lot of money going on for innovations here, but I believe we have a potential return, and when we have the hype in the topic, and that's it. I know that we have a real risk to invest in projects of bioeconomy that where we have a long-term return, but we also have the references that we must discover what will be the real risk and how to do with economic sexing. And there are some other things that we have to consider. There are some very good innovations that happens in, for example, Natura's company in Unilever, for example, they have a huge department of innovation. So consider this as a starting point in a situation of a company that organizes this value. You can get this risk in a different level. These are the two terms that I'd like to bring here as a reflection. Well, how to transform bioeconomy into a sexy sector? That is the question. So I'm very optimistic to say that we did it, and the G20 we could bring this into the agenda, the official agenda. We had an approval of the bioeconomy principles, and I believe that in the future it will be continued in the South Africa, and we also have the official declarations of the group, and also the negotiation to take this to the leaders in the end of the year. So thank you very much. Thank you all the panelists and all of the audience that are still here. Thank you.
Let's invite you to a group picture. So while they prepare for the picture, I want to thank you for the presence in this morning. So we are coming back at 2:30 to the workshops that is in your credential. There will be some announcements, and after 2:30 we are going to invite, dividing ourselves in the hall and in the